Sri Lanka's government is urging civil servants to take a day off every week to grow crops in their backyards. It's the latest attempt to forestall a looming food shortage amid a national economic crisis.
Now, the country is experiencing a severe lack of fuel and medicines as well, and there are growing concerns that children are going hungry. Well, joining us now is Bismarck Swangin from UNICEF Sri Lanka. Thank you so much, Bismarck, for taking the time to speak with us today. We know that.
Thank you for having me.
We know that Sri Lanka has one of the highest child malnutrition rates in South Asia. I'm presuming then that the economic crisis has just exacerbated that situation.
Well, you are right. When I woke up this morning, the first thing I did was to check the power cut schedule for the day, because prolonged power cuts, long fuel queues, empty supermarket shelves, rising prices are the characteristics of the current economic crisis. And according to a recent UNICEF assessment, 7 out of 10 families that we spoke to have informed us that they are cutting down on food. So if they were eating 3 times, they are down to 2 or 2 to 1, and in the quality of food that they are eating as well. Sri Lanka was already, as you mentioned, the 7th most malnourished country for children in the world and the 2nd in the region. And we fear that with the current crisis, this can only get worse and worse unless urgent action is taken.
Well, as you say, the families now are trying to cope with this crisis, but how is that playing out and impacting children, particularly young children who are developing?
Well, the crisis is really pushing families to their limits. Children are not able to access the basics of life because of the country's inability to import essential commodities like fuel, the electricity cuts, which are affecting the vital services on which children depend, like hospitals. We received from the Ministry of Health a list of 25 essential medicines, including for use in intensive care unit or for treatment of life-threatening diseases that are going to run out in the next 1 to 2 months. Children are not able to go to school because their school vans don't have fuel. The school meal that used to be provided for children, the price has more than doubled. And so that is no longer affordable. That was a major incentive for children to be able to go to school.
Now, we know that UNICEF is launching an appeal to save the lives of children in Sri Lanka. These funds that will be raised from the appeal, where will that go? Which programs will it fund?
So UNICEF is calling for an urgent action really to support the immediate needs of children. We're aiming to be able to treat children who are severely malnourished, to be able to provide water to communities and families that now are not able to get the adequate amount of water because of reduction in pumping for water. We are aiming to be able to provide pregnant women with nutritious diet so that we can avoid malnutrition of mothers and malnutrition of more children. We are aiming to provide mental health support to children. The distress that parents are going through is all squarely, resting on children. And so these are really the most immediate urgent needs that we want to be able to support now to avoid a worst case scenario.
Bismarck, just on another issue, in the last few weeks, Sri Lankan asylum seekers have been found in Australian waters. What are you hearing about people trying to leave the country?
Well, the crisis is forcing people to take desperate measures into negative coping mechanisms. Some of the families that we have spoken to here are, selling their assets or pawning or borrowing. And that's really how people are affected. There is nowhere to turn to. Just before, about 1 year ago, I was working with UNICEF in Yemen. I've been in Somalia, I've been in South Sudan. But this is a crisis like no any other. There is nowhere safe to run to within the country. And so really people are, looking at all desperate measures to be able to cope.
Bismarck, it's good to have you here on Weekend Breakfast explaining to us the dire situation in Sri Lanka. We thank you so much and we wish you all the best with UNICEF's appeal. Bismarck Swangin there from UNICEF Sri Lanka.